Welcome to Keep What You Earn, your judgment and jargon-free zone for entrepreneurs of all levels. Get ready to learn how to scale your business, save money in taxes, and create a business that grows your wealth. If it feels like the financial side of business is like eating your vegetables, well then think of this podcast as the ranch dressing to make the process a little more enjoyable. My name is Shannon. I'm a CPA and business owner on a mission to simplify money and empower others through knowledge. I hope this episode inspires you to take action, but remember that the information we share is for educational purposes only and is not individual tax advice. Now that we got that out of the way, let's start the show. I find that it's a constant struggle for business owners to toggle between these mindsets of, I need to sell more in order to be profitable, and I need to spend less. And I watched a fitness influencer or creator on social media that kept saying, well, if your goal is to quote unquote tone or build muscle, then you can't simultaneously have the focus or goal to lose body weight or drop in weight. And that was interesting to hear because it was kind of like they use the analogy of you're walking up an escalator going down. Because if you're trying to build muscle, you are trying to build, you are trying to gain. But if you're trying to lose fat, you are trying to lose. So you're going to be at a calorie deficit. So in a way, he was saying that these two goals counteract each other. And I was thinking about that in the form of business and saying, yeah, there's always these like tug of wars going on because you're trying to do too many things at once. But if you were to focus on, say, losing body fat, then after you did that, focus on gaining muscle tissue, that's probably going to get you the desired outcome. You're going to be able to focus linearly on one goal and then the next. Now, it doesn't mean you drop everything and you do that one thing, but we'll say you focus and spend the majority of your effort focusing on that goal. So you're making decisions that are aligned to that goal, and you've got that in mind while you're in that phase, while you're kind of focusing on one thing at a time. And I encourage the same thing in business. I've been coaching clients through this for years where they want to do everything all at once. They want to hit a certain profitability number. And they're saying, okay, well, if we increase sales by this and simultaneously drop our costs by this, then this is going to be the outcome. But here's the thing. It's usually not simultaneous. This is usually a process. So what I recommend doing when it comes to prioritizing this is if you're going through sort of a profit transformation, if you're really looking at your margins, you have to get super clear about, okay, what costs can we cut? And then what do we need to do to increase our revenue goals? Then this is what you have to be thinking about. You have to be looking at, okay, what costs can we cut without damaging the revenue growth? Because if you are trying to do both things at once, if you're trying to cost cut and grow revenue, you could be walking up that down escalator. Like I said, here's an example. I had a client who was trying to grow their revenue. Okay. They're a service-based business, B2B. They were trying to grow their revenue, simultaneously cutting costs. What was happening was the operations team was trying to basically lower commissions and lower the amount they were spending and cutting hours spent for their marketing team. Because there were some people in the marketing team that were hourly, and there were some sales folks who were commission based. And that's where a lot of the money was going. So what they were doing was they were cutting back hours and they were cutting down commissions or deferring commissions or changing the terms, right? So what ended up happening, as you can probably guess, less marketing effort, less Facebook ads went out because they cut the marketing budget, less salespeople, right? Because people would leave or people would not make as much money. So there was less like momentum, less sales traction, less enthusiasm in the sales team. So as a result, less sales. So what they really just did was they reduced their cost, but reduced their revenue almost proportionately. So they're right back where they started. This is the problem, is that you're reducing costs that also drag your revenue down with it. So even though you're noticing that a lot of money is going to advertising, even though you're noticing a lot is going to sales, sometimes rightfully so, because it's actually directly related to revenue generation. So you have to be looking at the impact of your cost cutting to your revenue generation and making sure that you're not kind of shooting yourself in the leg. So when we talk about this linear approach of like one focus at a time, what I encourage people to do is start here. Look at the costs that are unrelated to revenue. Look at the operations costs. Look at the cost to fulfill. Look for efficiencies. Okay, not just cutting and elimination, but look for efficiencies. For example, if you have someone who is hourly, can we cut back the time they're spending through automation? Can we reduce expectations? Can we defer certain initiatives they're spending time on? Can we audit people's time a little bit better to see what they're focusing on, especially if they're paid hourly for that output? So that's number one. Then number two is cutting any additional things that are not necessary or not the right now priorities. Then we get into, if we're going into revenue generation, it's really identifying what needs to happen. How much do we need to be increasing revenue? But what needs to happen to increase that revenue? And what will that cost us in exchange? So there's a lot of moving pieces here. And I do recommend that you do an operational audit, we'll say first. Now, you could do either or in either order, but I like doing the operational audit first to make sure that the machine is running and there are no holes in the bucket before we pour more water in. Okay. So I like to close the holes in the bucket before I go find a new hose, right? Then I will go find another water source and pour that in. Because if the bucket still has holes in it, then we have to pump the water in at twice the rate so that it starts to fill up a little bit before it completely leaks out. So we have to just be filling it faster than it's leaking. Well, what if we just close the holes? That would be easier first, right? So that's how I look, is like bottom up from the P&L. I go through and look for expenses to create efficiency around, and then we go into the revenue side and see how we can optimize sales. I know it might be logical to go the other direction, but trust me that, and it's totally okay if you do, but understand that if there are leaks in the bucket, if there are holes, that plugging them is the wisest thing to do first. If there are very blatant holes in the bucket, then when you look at your revenue, you want to be looking at, okay, not just are we selling the right, well, I'm not sure, are we selling more, but are we selling the right offer? Are we selling the profitable offers? Or is there anything we can do to optimize how many sales are coming in? What are the drivers to our sales that we could be optimizing? So if it's calls booked, right? How are we booking more calls? Do we need to open up more times on the Calendly link so we can take more sales calls? Do we need to make it easier for people to book, make it easier for people to find the sales call link, to find the landing page? Do we need to be promoting it more? Do we need to send more emails? Do we need to post more on social media? Whatever that looks like for you, whatever the drivers are for you, you want to double down on the driver and be incorporating that activity in consistently. So when you fall into this trap of like, okay, do I need to be spending less or do I need to be making more? The answer is, of course, both would be ideal. But the way to know what's going to work for you is to start with one of them. Start with one of them and just focus on that as your goal. That my goal for this month or this 2 weeks or this week or this quarter is to get my costs down X%. And that is it. Because believe it or not, simply by changing one side of the equation, when you think about it, it's math, right? If you have 5 minus 2 equals 3, well, if you reduce the cost, let's say 5 minus 1 equals 4, well, you're left with more at the end of the day. By reducing the cost alone, it's the equivalent of increasing revenue on your profitability. Don't forget that saving is actually making money. Saving costs can feel like making money. It just doesn't give you that dopamine hit of like the sale, the rush, the yes, the click, the buy now. But it does lead to more money in your bank account. So don't be afraid to start with the cost cutting techniques and then from there move into revenue generation, and then you'll be able to double down on your profit growth. So if you're struggling with profitability, this is how I would approach it. Just one bit by bit, step by step. Look at your operational costs, look at some of the other costs that you have, and then look at your revenue. It's just going to help you get some perspective and really focus your attention and your energy on the things that you can change and not get you too scattered or too overwhelmed. Hey, if you haven't yet booked a power session with me, I currently have spots open and I would love to dive deeper into your business. Now, here's what you can expect. One client who's a business coach said that this was one of the most clarifying sessions she's ever had. And she said, I feel like I finally understand how to steer the ship of my business in the right direction. Another client said that she couldn't believe that so much money, $10,000 per month to be exact, was hiding in plain sight on her financials, and she only discovered it from sitting in our session and going through the details with me. Another client was able to get their S corporation fully implemented with me on a call, and then their salary was adjusted to the proper level, so now they can have all their ducks in a row come tax time. The beauty of these sessions is that you can make them your own, and we can meet you where you're at in your business to help you move forward faster. If you're interested in booking a session, click the link in the show notes and apply now to grab one of those spots. We only do about 2 per month, so space is limited. Jump on it right now. Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a rating and review on your podcast platform. This small action goes a long way for podcasters to get our message heard by more business owners just like you. Be sure to check out the show notes for links to information about our guests and ways to get in touch with me. We'll see you on the next episode.